Hey everyone, hope everyone's doing well and staying safe, and of course Happy New Year to everybody. Hope it was a really eventful one. Seems like here in New York City we did have Times Square somewhat full. I believe it definitely was scaled back, that's for sure, but there definitely were still a number of thousands or so people there. I was not there myself, very tempted to, but just spent time with family and friends. Hope everyone's doing okay, enjoyed their New Year's and all the holidays that just basically went past. So I want to do a quick little follow-up review of the DJI OM5 gimbal, basically the Osmo Mobile 5th generation gimbal, and maybe do a little bit of a walk and talk chit chat video with it, filming exactly in the same area that I was actually doing the field test here in wonderful Queens. Of course, there's a nice view of the city over there. Now, you might be a little surprised. I'm actually not using that gimbal right now. I'm actually using the original DJI OM 1st generation gimbal. Unfortunately, after doing maybe one or two more field tests and after actually reviewing the video with the OM5, I have to tell you, I had to call it, unfortunately. The jello, jittery, corner, shaky videos were just not really what I was anticipating or even expected from a new version of the gimbal itself. I'm actually filming with the 1st generation because I want to demonstrate basically what I'm talking about. So when reviewing the video, well, actually no, let me take a step back here. When actually looking at the screen of the smartphone I'm using right now, and actually in that video, as I mentioned, I actually used two smartphones, one an iOS phone and one an Android. One of them was actually used here in Queens, the other one was in Manhattan, and the wonderful Times Square where I usually like to walk and do little recordings like this. Now, right now I'm actually using an Android phone, and let me just pan this way a little bit. Even just looking at the smartphone screen while filming, I already knew this was a problem. I noticed two issues. One was obviously the little jello effect feeling that I was having on the corners that I'm definitely not having here. The other one was basically just like the jagged turns. As you can see here when I'm turning, it just basically feels like it's like a forceful run of force, like wind just literally turn me over from one side to another, and that usually happens when you actually turn really drastically, like right now, so to speak. But even with this gimbal, I don't notice it's being too much of an issue. With the DJI OM5, even just doing a small turn like that, I was noticing it was just hiccuping. This little very smooth, easeful, just ease into the turn kind of feeling just doesn't happen. It basically goes not so, obviously not to that far of a degree, but you kind of get my drift, and if you actually look at that video, you see what I'm talking about. That immediately I already noticed was going to be an issue. What I actually wasn't expecting was the little jello effect corner feeling, shakiness in the sides. And this was unfortunately something I was experiencing with the 4th generation, the DJI OM4. And I was thinking newer generation there might be some pluses and whatnot, but unfortunately same issue. A little shakiness on the corners, and it seemed like the 5th generation was just giving me more issues, unfortunately, and I just had to call it. Now, I actually know some YouTubers online who do walk and talk videos in the city and everything else. One of them, really wonderful lady, she actually uses a DJI OM4, and I really don't see that effect on her gimbal much at all. Every now and then, especially when she's tapping on the screen or trying to get a closer look at her live chat and all that stuff, because she does live stream. So that's good. I know a couple from Brooklyn who actually also do a very similar kind of feature, walking and talking all throughout the 5 boroughs and elsewhere. It is really hard to believe that they're actually using the gimbal. At least when I first started watching their videos, because it's almost like they're actually holding their hand, because it's shaking like crazy. I forget which generation DJI gimbal they're using, but either, who knows, really can't get into that, really can't speculate on what on earth is going on there. And I even confirmed with them that they are using the gimbal in one video. They weren't doing anything stupid like you know, trying to chase each other, or you know, order coffee and have a slice of pizza on the other hand. But some other videos I've actually noticed also to some degree have the same issue using the newer generation of DJI gimbals. And I have to tell you, I definitely experienced it walking here and walking in the city with the 4th and 5th generation, particularly the 5th. Now, it's always possible that maybe I got a dud. The one I have is has an issue. Maybe it's not working correctly. Maybe there's even a firmware that was just released 24 hours before I actually did the review, and it kind of addresses stuff like this. But, or, you know, definitely for sure, it could be user error, it could be doing something wrong. But I do know those gimbals are actually geared for more bigger smartphones, so I heard. Right now I'm actually using an S10, and yeah, it's somewhere in the middle, I guess you can say. But definitely, if you're going to handle a big smartphone, it should be able to handle a lighter weight, smaller one. And this one has a case, so it weighs a little bit more with it. Pretty heavy duty case from Spigen. So it's a mystery. I don't know if anyone has any experience with that, or I have seen some comments mentioning the jello effect and other issues, but definitely let me know. I mean, I definitely would like to hear your feedback and any advice even. I can always look into actually getting my hands on that gimbal again and give it another go. But unfortunately, with the issues I was having after about 3 or 4 videos, I had to call it quits with it. And right now I'm just using my original DJI OM 1st generation gimbal that I got back in 2017, end of 2017 or so. I saw it being used at a friend's wedding, and I realized I had to get myself one. So this gimbal actually is definitely a little bit on the heavier side. It does have a removable battery, but it definitely doesn't have wonderful little features like the option to put a little stand, unless you actually buy something external. Very not so convenient to actually use. And it definitely doesn't have like the big long neck extension, like the selfie stick kind of extension that the 5th generation has. That was actually a pretty welcome surprise, and maybe possibly based on customer feedback. But turned out to be a pretty good idea there. But unfortunately, like I said, the gimbal just didn't work out. So you can actually see here, I'm actually doing some turns, doing like a little 360 here right now. It's a little sunny here, so I'm not going to look directly into the sun. I'm going to see little blind spots all freaking night. And obviously it's not a perfect turn, but you can actually see there's no dramatic shifts or turns, basically like that. With the OM5, it's like it's still trying to make up its mind, going slow, going fast, going slow, going fast. And maybe it's the fact that it doesn't have too much weight. Maybe it's that little magnetic clamp that seemed pretty convenient, especially if you want to take your phone out and start using it. Obviously those are the two things that those 2 generations have in common. I did actually buy a family member the 2nd generation DJI OM 2 some months after it came out. So I guess this was like probably 2018. She doesn't use it too much, but when she does, I don't notice that jello effect, jagged turns, etc., etc. So maybe I should get my hands on it and borrow it one day and see how it works. Doing a little bit of a walk up here. It's pretty cold. Definitely a much change in ambience and weather since the last video. It was nice in summer, people running shorts and biking, and obviously here definitely much less people. Nice and seeing a nice little 3-4 p.m. sundown here though. The only thing I can definitely, little rant I do have with this particular gimbal, and it was kind of annoying, but I did actually figure out how to bypass, not resolve it, is this particular gimbal has a little sensor on the right side towards the back. Kind of looks like a little camera screen, and that sensor basically detects if there's actually a phone in the gimbal itself. I'm pretty sure the other gimbals have something similar, but this one I found to be quite annoying. It sometimes recognizes there's something there, it sometimes doesn't. And that can be pretty irritating. When I was actually doing a little bit of filming out in East Africa, I thought it was actually the warm weather, but no, it was just that stupid sensor. While everything's working okay and I'm filming, the sucker would actually think, oh, there's nothing there anymore, and the gimbal will just go to sleep, into sleep mode, and you'll have a camera facing down on the floor basically. I basically would have to turn it off and turn it back on in order to get it back on, and of course it's going to happen again. There were some videos, fortunately, they were just sample shots and whatnot, but there were some videos that got a little ruined because of this. Fortunately, again, just sample shots, nothing I was hoping they really keep anyway. But there's actually a video I did when I flew Kenya Airways, the first flight from New York City to East Africa. That fortunately worked out pretty well, but I can imagine what a disaster it would have been if this camera had just gone limp during that whole thing. So what I ended up doing, and you know what's funny enough, even the case, the phone case you're using might actually cause this effect. And that was actually really irritating. So what I ended up doing is taking some blue painter's tape. I prefer that because it's easier to remove. If you put duct tape or something else, you might get that residue everywhere, and that kind of looks awful and feels awful too. So I put a little bit of painter's tape and blocked the sensor. So now it looks like there's always something there. I do notice that whenever I do up and down shots, like right now I'm actually trying to aim down and it doesn't work. So I can always just use the little knob here, little throttle, and just aim down. No big deal. The only other thing I did notice, obviously, is now this thing's always going to think there's a phone. So if I turn this thing on by accident, it's going to start giving that crazy, like, shakiness effect. And it's going to start rattling all over your desk. I actually did have that happen once in my backpack, and that was kind of funny, I guess. It's almost as bad as having one of those bullhorns go off with a little alarm. I had a friend who was taking the Long Island Railroad once to the city and had one of those things go off, and that was a pretty funny delight, I guess. So, other than that, this gimbal is still pretty solid after a couple of years. I don't think I've even had an issue with the battery, but mind you, I don't use it that much. So I'm doing another little 360 here of the whole park. Move down a little bit. So, doing shots like this, just standing still, going in circles, was a big no-no with the DJI OM 5. Now again, maybe there's some calibration that I was missing, anything else. I know on gimbals you usually have to calibrate the center a little bit, so when the gimbal's off, it's basically balanced as opposed to tilting from left or right. I actually have this gimbal calibrated like that. Originally I didn't. The gimbal would still work, but I'm basically killing my motor. So yeah, unfortunately the DJI OM 5 did not really work out too well. And I definitely would like to hear some feedback, user feedback on anybody using it. If they're having a great time with it, great. Definitely want to know maybe what factors are not really affecting your use of it that was maybe possibly affecting mine. I honestly think, very likely from speaking to a few people, I probably received a dud. But mind you, this actually did happen with the DJI OM 4 as well too. So the chance of coincidence are really low for having two duds. of the gimbals there. Something else is causing that, and I definitely would like to see what that factor might have been. It definitely could be user error, maybe I did something wrong, but putting the phone to a gimbal, turning it on, I don't really know what other issue there could be. One little thing I forgot to mention actually is I was not using the DJI app to film. I did actually get everything ready, connected it to Bluetooth and all that jazz, but I actually just used a regular camera app on the phone to actually film. And the reason is because the DJI app, if you've actually used it for some time now, has a little bit of limitations when filming in 4K, particularly 60 frames. And even if you do film, sometimes the picture ends up being a little just substandard, I guess you can say. So I'm actually just using, like I am right now, same thing, just using the regular camera app to actually film this walk right now. Same thing I did before. I don't think there should be any issue. The app probably really shouldn't be doing the work. It's really the motors and the gimbal itself, not the software part. So I don't really believe that really could be a factor, but if it is, let me know. That could actually be another one. Anyway, it looks like my little walk here is about to end. I want to actually just quickly just do a little follow-up chit-chat review. Well, not really review because I don't even have it with my hand, but try to get some feedback on why I'm just not having so much luck with these newer generations of DJI gimbals. Now, you've probably seen some videos, biking videos and whatnot, and recent walking videos in the city. I've actually been using the DJI Pocket 2 gimbal. Now that is an amazing piece of hardware. I really enjoy that gimbal. It does a trick. It's small, it's portable. I've showed it to people at work and they love it. I was actually even thinking about doing like a little video to introduce a piece of hardware, which would have been interesting, old-fashioned like commercial style video right there in 30 seconds. And that gimbal definitely is really does its job really well. Even on my biking videos, some people have been really impressed about how it just doesn't shake too much. One little trick I did use on the biking videos with that gimbal is actually to basically loosen up the grip. Otherwise you start to pick up all the vibrations from the bike itself, and the gimbal is basically doing much more work than it really should be, and it may not actually be able to do all of it. So hence you get a little bit more shaky videos when you hit a bump, or just regular vibrations going through the bike itself. That gimbal along with this one, I'm definitely having a really amazing experience with so far. So definitely shoot me your experience with those gimbals or any of the other ones I've mentioned. I definitely would like to hear any feedback or suggestions even of what on earth could be happening with those gimbals that I previously tried using. Anyway, here's the end of my walk. Thanks again for watching, everyone. Definitely shoot a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. Take care.